So, this happened over the holidays and I'm still processing everything, but I need to get this out because my head is about to explode and I genuinely don't know if I'm the one who's lost my mind or if my family has always been this unhinged and I was just too close to see it clearly. Let me back up and give you the context because without it, none of this makes sense. I'm 27, male. I work in commercial HVAC installation and maintenance. Been doing it since I was 19. Worked my way up to senior technician, decent salary, own my truck, rent a 2-bedroom apartment about 40 minutes from my parents' place. Not rich, but comfortable, independent. That last part matters because my parents, Carlos and Anna, have spent the last 8 years making sure I know that my independence is basically a personal insult to them. Here's what you need to understand about my family. When I was 19, I found out my dad was cheating on my mom. Not like a suspicion, not like weird behavior. I walked into his office in our basement looking for a printer cable and his laptop was open to a WhatsApp conversation with a woman named Christine. The messages were explicit photos. Plans to meet at a hotel the following Thursday. I stood there reading for probably 3 minutes before I even processed what I was looking at. Now, here's where I apparently committed the unforgivable sin. I told my mom, I know. Some people would say I should have confronted my dad first or minded my own business or whatever, but I was 19 and I loved my mom and I thought she deserved to know her husband was sending graphic messages to another woman. I showed her the laptop, she read it, and then she did something I didn't expect. She told me I had ruined everything and that I needed to leave immediately and let her handle it. They stayed together, obviously. But here's the thing, they didn't just stay together and move on. They created this whole narrative where I was the villain of the story. According to my parents, I invaded my father's privacy. I caused unnecessary drama. I almost destroyed our family over what my mother eventually called a minor indiscretion that they had worked through privately. My dad never apologized to me. Not once. Instead, he told everyone in the extended family that I had gone through his personal belongings and tried to break up their marriage over misunderstood messages. Misunderstood. Like there's an innocent interpretation of those photos. So, for the past 8 years, I've been the black sheep. My younger sister, Ruby, she's 24 now. She became the golden child because she had the good sense to keep her mouth shut about everything. She got help with her college tuition. She got a car for graduation. She got invited to family vacations. Me, I got frozen out. Not completely. They still invited me to major holidays. But there was always this undercurrent, this constant reminder that I was the one who almost ruined everything. Every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, I'd show up and feel like I was on probation. I stopped caring about their approval around year 3. Started building my own life, my own savings, my own credit. I knew in my bones, that eventually they would need something from me or eventually they would escalate. People like my parents don't just let things go. They hold grudges like investments and they wait for the right moment to cash in. Christmas Eve this year was that moment. And honestly, I saw it coming. Not the specifics, but I felt something was different when I got the invitation text from my mom 3 weeks before. Usually, she just assumes I'm coming. This time, she made a point of saying she really hoped I could make it, that it would mean a lot, that they wanted to start fresh. I'm not stupid. After 8 years of barely tolerating my presence, suddenly they want to start fresh. I showed up anyway because I wanted to see what game they were playing. Their house was packed. I'm talking 60+ people. Aunts, uncles, cousins, second cousins, people I barely recognized. My parents never host gatherings this big. They usually do small dinners, maybe 15 people max. I walked in and immediately every head turned to look at me and I swear the conversation volume dropped by half. My mom came over and hugged me. Told me she was so glad I made it. Led me into the living room where the big Christmas tree was set up. My dad was standing by the fireplace where all the stockings were hung, including mine. I remember thinking that was weird because they stopped putting up a stocking for me about 4 years ago. My dad asked everyone to gather around because he and my mom had an announcement. People put down their drinks, stopped their conversations, formed this semicircle around the fireplace. I was standing near the back by the dining room entrance. And then my dad started talking. He said that he and my mom had done a lot of soul searching this year. that they had prayed on it and discussed it with their pastor and with a family counselor, that they had realized they needed to finally address the elephant in the room that had been poisoning their family for nearly a decade. He was looking directly at me the entire time. Then my mom walked over to the fireplace, reached up, and ripped my stocking off the mantle. She held it up for everyone to see and said that this stocking represented 8 years of trying to forgive someone who had shown no remorse for nearly destroying their marriage. That they had tried to include me, tried to give me chances, but that I had never apologized, never acknowledged the damage I caused, never taken responsibility. She walked over to the fire and threw my stocking into the flames and said they never should have kept me. 60 people, 60 family members watching my mother burn my Christmas stocking while telling everyone they regret raising me. I just stood there, not because I was shocked. Honestly, I was more fascinated than anything. This was so much more dramatic than I expected. Like, they had been planning this, rehearsing it, probably. But wait, it gets better. My dad walked over to me, reached into his jacket pocket, and pulled out an envelope, said he was sorry it had to come to this, but that their lawyer had advised them this was the best course of action. I opened the envelope, and inside was a civil lawsuit filing. They were suing me for $156,000 in emotional damages for, and I'm quoting directly from the document, causing severe emotional distress and reputational harm to the family unit through malicious disclosure of private communications. They were suing me for telling my mom about my dad's affair. 8 years later, in front of 60 relatives on Christmas Eve, my Uncle Tony, my dad's brother, started clapping, actually clapping. A few other relatives joined in. My aunt on my mom's side looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything. Ruby was filming the whole thing on her phone, which I'm sure was intentional. Then my dad dropped the second bomb. He said that he had also contacted my landlord, a guy he apparently knew through his church, to inform him that I had been misrepresenting my income and couldn't actually afford my rent, that my landlord would be sending me a notice to vacate within 30 days. That part actually impressed me. I didn't know he even knew who my landlord was, let alone had connections to him. My dad had been doing his homework. Everyone was staring at me, waiting for my reaction, waiting for me to cry or yell or beg. My mom had this satisfied smile like she had finally won. I folded the lawsuit papers, put them back in the envelope, tucked it into my jacket pocket, looked at my dad and told him that I appreciated him finally being honest about how he felt, that this was actually helpful, and that I hoped he enjoyed his Christmas. Then I walked out, got in my truck, drove home, and sat in my parking lot for about an hour just thinking. Not crying, not panicking, thinking. See, here's what my parents don't know. I've been waiting for this. Not this specifically, but something, some move, some attack. I knew they would eventually try to hurt me in a real way. And I've spent the last 5 years building a very specific kind of insurance policy. 3 days after Christmas, my phone started blowing up. My dad calling, my mom calling, Ruby texting me that I needed to call them back immediately. By day 4, they were up to 70 calls between them. Voicemails ranging from demanding I respond to almost pleading. I haven't answered a single one because I'm not done yet. What I'm about to do is going to take their entire world and flip it upside down. And they have no idea it's coming. Alright, promised an update when phase 1 was complete. But first, I need to address things that happened since my last post because this situation evolved in ways I did not anticipate. To everyone asking about the lawsuit's legal merit, I spoke with a lawyer the day after New Year's. $200 consultation, sat in his office for an hour going through the documents. Short answer is no. This lawsuit won't win. The lawyer actually laughed reading the complaint. Suing your adult child for emotional damages because they disclosed infidelity 8 years ago is not a recognized cause of action. But here's the complication. Even though the lawsuit will get dismissed, I still have to respond to it. Still have to hire representation. Still have to show up to court dates. If I don't, my dad could get a default judgment. So even though this lawsuit is garbage, it cost me time and money to make it go away. That's the point. My dad isn't trying to win. He's trying to drain me financially. Now the eviction threat. This one made me laugh. Went to my landlord's office on December 28th. His name is Wayne. Older guy. Runs property management out of a strip mall near my complex. Wayne was uncomfortable the second he saw me. Started rambling about concerning information and obligations to other tenants. I let him talk, then asked directly what my dad told him. Turns out my dad claimed I was terminated 6 months ago, living off credit cards, behind on payments, about to declare bankruptcy. Wayne said my dad presented himself as a concerned parent warning him before I defaulted. I pulled up pay stubs on my phone showing continuous employment for 4 years. Showed bank statements proving on-time rent payments every month. Asked if my dad provided any documentation. Wayne admitted he hadn't. Then I asked Wayne if he understood that what my dad did could be considered tortious interference and that if he attempted eviction based on false third-party claims, I'd pursue legal action against both of them. Wayne backtracked immediately. Hadn't started any proceedings, just doing due diligence. Appreciated me clearing things up. I told him any further contact from my father should be reported to me. He agreed fast. 2 attacks neutralized within a week. Lawsuit is a paper tiger. Eviction threat crumbled with facts. My parents made a huge spectacle followed by moves with 0 teeth. Then Ruby showed up at my apartment January 2nd. Just appeared at my door around 7. Hadn't seen her since she was filming my humiliation on Christmas Eve. Almost didn't let her in, but I was curious. She sat on my couch uninvited and started talking about how mom and dad were worried sick. Hadn't heard from me. Wondered if something happened. I stood by the kitchen counter and let her talk. Then she switched tactics. Said Christmas Eve wasn't supposed to go that far. The stocking thing was mom's idea. Dad didn't know she'd say that about wishing they never kept me. Said the lawsuit was the lawyer's recommendation and they were reconsidering, that they wanted to reconcile, but needed me to meet halfway. I asked what halfway meant. She said I should apologize for the disruption 8 years ago and acknowledge I handled it poorly. If I could admit I was wrong, they could forgive me. I told Ruby that was never happening. I did the right thing and would do it again. Dad cheated. Dad lied. And if anyone should apologize, it's him. Ruby did that dismissive eye roll she's perfected since we were teenagers and said my attitude was exactly why things got to this point. Then she said something useful. Mom and Dad were getting pressure from extended family about Christmas Eve. Some relatives who witnessed the stocking burning had been calling with questions and concerns. Uncle Tony was on their side, but several of Mom's siblings were uncomfortable with how things went. Ruby said they needed this resolved quickly before it became bigger drama. That's their real concern, not me. Damage control. They made their dramatic move and the audience isn't reacting as expected. I told Ruby to leave. She argued, said I was being unreasonable, throwing away family over pride. I opened my front door and stood there until she got up. Walking out, she said if I didn't reach out within the week, things would get worse for me. I asked what that meant. She said I should think about my job and reputation and whether I wanted to spend years fighting battles on every front. So now my sister is threatening me too. The calls from my parents haven't stopped. My dad's voicemails swing between demanding I respond and almost pleading. Mom's messages are colder, focused on reminding me the lawsuit is active. Here's what they don't understand. I'm not ignoring them because I'm scared. I'm ignoring them because I'm preparing. Remember that insurance policy I mentioned? When I found those messages between my dad and Christine 8 years ago, I didn't just show them to my mom. I took photos of the screen. Screenshots of every WhatsApp message, every photo, everything. Still have them on a hard drive in my closet. For years, I didn't know what to do with them. I was the villain in the family narrative, and evidence didn't matter because Mom already knew the truth and chose to blame me. But now my parents publicly declared me dead to them in front of 60 relatives. Now, Dad filed a lawsuit claiming I maliciously damaged their reputation by disclosing private communications. Now, they're threatening my job and housing. If they want to talk about private communications being disclosed, let's talk. Let's talk in front of every person at that Christmas party. Let's see how their narrative holds up when the actual messages are available for review. I've been organizing the screenshots chronologically, adding context, also going through 8 years of texts from my parents, documenting every time they blamed me, called me the problem, rewrote history to make Dad's affair my fault. Phase 1 was survival, handle legal threat, handle housing threat, understand what I'm working with, complete. Phase 2 involves reaching out to every family member at that Christmas gathering and offering them the opportunity to see what actually happened 8 years ago. Not through dramatic confrontation, direct communication, individual messages, truth documented and undeniable. But first, I need one more piece of information. To get it, I have to talk to my parents directly. I texted my dad yesterday saying I'd meet them Saturday at a public location of my choosing. He responded within 30 seconds. I'm not meeting them to reconcile. I'm meeting them to get answers to questions I've had for 8 years. Depending on what they say, phase 2 might become something bigger. We'll update after Saturday. Saturday happened. I have a lot to process and honestly, I'm still angry typing this, so bear with me if this gets a little scattered. Met my parents at a diner about 20 minutes from my apartment. Chose this place specifically because it's not near their neighborhood, not near mine. Neutral ground where neither of us would know anyone. Also chose it because it's one of those places with booths that have high backs, so conversations feel semi-private, even in a public space. I got there 15 minutes early, grabbed a booth in the back corner, ordered coffee, and waited. My parents walked in exactly on time, which tells me they were probably sitting in the parking lot waiting, too. Neither of them wanted to be the one arriving second. My mom slid into the booth across from me and immediately started talking. She wanted me to understand that Christmas Eve got out of hand, that emotions were running high, that the stocking thing was symbolic and not meant to be taken so literally. She said they still loved me, but that they needed acknowledgement of the pain I caused before they could move forward. My dad sat there nodding along like she was reading from a script they'd rehearsed in the car. I let her finish. Then I asked my dad directly why he was still with Christine. The look on his face was worth every second of the past 8 years. He tried to play confused, asked what I was talking about, said that was ancient history. I told him I wasn't stupid and that I knew the affair never ended. That the only reason I told Mom back then was because I thought she deserved to know. And the only reason they made me the villain was because it was easier than admitting that their entire marriage was built on lies they both agreed to believe. My mom jumped in immediately, saying I had no right to make accusations, that I was just trying to deflect from my own behavior. I asked her point blank if she knew Dad was still seeing Christine. She didn't answer, just stared at me with this tight expression like she was trying to decide whether to keep lying or switch tactics. Here's the thing I've figured out over the years. My mom does know. She's always known. The affair didn't destroy their marriage because she made a choice to accept it in exchange for the life they built together. The house, the social standing, the church community, the image of the perfect family. Dad gets to have his side piece and Mom gets to pretend everything is fine as long as nobody talks about it out loud. When I exposed the affair 8 years ago, I didn't just threaten my dad. I threatened the entire arrangement. I made it real. I made it something that had to be addressed instead of something that could be quietly tolerated. That's why they hate me. Not because I invaded privacy or caused drama. Because I refused to play along with their fiction. My dad finally spoke up after about a minute of silence. He said that what happens in his marriage is between him and my mother, that I had no business interfering then, and I have no business bringing it up now. He said the lawsuit wasn't about the affair. It was about teaching me that actions have consequences. That I needed to learn I couldn't just blow up people's lives and walk away without repercussions. I told him that was fascinating coming from a man who'd been cheating on his wife for at least a decade with zero repercussions. He got red in the face and told me to watch my mouth. My mom tried to redirect the conversation. Said they didn't come here to relitigate the past. They came to find a path forward. She said if I would apologize and agree to drop any counter-legal action, they would consider withdrawing the lawsuit. Consider, not definitely withdraw. Consider. I asked them about contacting my employer. Both of them went very still. My dad said he didn't know what I was talking about. I told him that's interesting because my supervisor had mentioned to me on Friday that someone had called the company's HR line to report concerns about my reliability and work ethic. The caller identified himself as a family member with inside knowledge of my personal issues. My mom looked at my dad. My dad didn't look at anyone. So, they hadn't stopped with the landlord. They'd gone after my job. I work in commercial HVAC. I've been with this company 4 years. I have an excellent record. And my parents thought they could just call up HR and tank my reputation with lies. I told them both very calmly that I had documentation of everything. Every text message they'd sent me over the past 8 years. Every voicemail, every instance of them rewriting history. And I told them I had the original screenshots from 2016, every single message between Dad and Christine, every photo, everything. My mom's face went white. My dad started to say something, but I cut him off. I said I hadn't decided yet what I was going to do with all of it, but that if they continued coming after my livelihood, I would make sure every single person at that Christmas Eve party received a complete package of evidence showing exactly what kind of man Carlos really is and what kind of woman Anna is for covering for him. My dad called me ungrateful. Said after everything they'd done for me, all the years of raising me, feeding me, giving me a roof over my head, this is how I repay them, by threatening to humiliate them in front of the entire family. I reminded him that they humiliated me in front of the entire family 3 weeks ago, that they burned my stocking and declared me dead to them, that they handed me a lawsuit at Christmas dinner. I was just offering to provide context. The conversation went in circles for another 20 minutes. My mom kept trying different angles, saying the screenshots were probably fake or doctored, saying that even if they were real, it didn't matter because she and Dad had worked through it privately, saying that airing family business publicly would only hurt everyone, including me. My dad alternated between anger and this weird wounded act where he kept saying he couldn't believe his own son would betray him like this. I finally told them I was done talking, that the lawsuit needed to be withdrawn by the end of the month, or I would start reaching out to family members, that any further contact with my employer, my landlord, or anyone else in my professional life would result in immediate distribution of everything I had, and that I expected a written apology for Christmas Eve that acknowledged what they actually did, not some version where they were the victims. My mom said I was making a huge mistake. My dad said I would regret this for the rest of my life. I put a 20 on the table for my coffee and walked out. That was Saturday. It's now Wednesday and here's what's happened since. Ruby has been texting me nonstop. She's furious. Apparently, my parents told her about the screenshots and she's convinced I fabricated them or that I'm bluffing. She keeps demanding I send them to her so she can verify they're real. I haven't responded to any of her messages. My parents have gone quiet. No more calls, no more voicemails. That worries me more than the constant contact did. When they were blowing up my phone, I at least knew what they were doing. Now I have no idea what they're planning. I've started reaching out to a few family members. Not with the screenshots yet, just checking in, asking how they're doing. Mentioning that I wanted to clear up some misconceptions about what happened at Christmas. My aunt on my mom's side, her name is also Christine, funny enough, responded saying she'd been wanting to talk to me, but didn't know if I wanted contact. She said she was uncomfortable with what she witnessed and had told my mom as much. So, there's at least one potential ally in the family, maybe more. The lawsuit deadline is in 12 days. Either they withdraw it or I start sending evidence. Either they back off or I burn their whole narrative to the ground. I know some of you are going to say I should just let this go, move on, build my own life separate from them. And maybe that would be the healthy thing, but I've spent 8 years being the villain of their story. 8 years watching them rewrite reality. 8 years being punished for telling the truth. I'm done being the villain. It's time they answered for their own choices. We'll update when the deadline passes. The deadline passed. They didn't withdraw the lawsuit. So, I did exactly what I said I would do. 3 days before the deadline, Ruby showed up at my workplace. I was finishing a commercial unit installation when a coworker said some woman was asking for me in the parking lot. Walked out and there she was leaning against her car, arms crossed. She started immediately. Said I was being cruel, that mom hadn't slept in days, that dad was talking about selling the house because stress was affecting his health, said whatever happened 8 years ago didn't justify destroying the family now, that the screenshots were old news and sharing them would only make me look vindictive. I told Ruby I gave them a clear path. Withdraw the lawsuit, stop contacting my employer, apologize. 3 simple things. She said I was unreasonable expecting apologies when I started all this by exposing Dad in the first place. That's when I realized Ruby wasn't there to negotiate. She was there to intimidate. She believed showing up at my job and pressuring me would make me fold. That's how my family operates. Pressure, manipulation, guilt. They've never dealt with someone who doesn't care about their approval anymore. I told Ruby to leave or I'd call security. She called me cold and heartless. I went back to work. The deadline came and went. No withdrawal, no apology, just silence from my parents and desperate texts from Ruby saying I still had time to make the right choice. So I made my choice. Started with my Aunt Christine, Mom's sister, who reached out after Christmas. Met her at her house on Sunday. Brought my laptop, sat at her kitchen table and showed her everything. The original WhatsApp screenshots from 2016. Explicit messages, photos, hotel plans, every piece of evidence I'd held for 8 years. She didn't speak for a long time, just scrolled through reading, processing, then asked why I was showing her this. I explained everything. Christmas Eve humiliation, the lawsuit, attempts to get me evicted and fired. Years of being blamed for telling the truth. I wasn't asking her to take sides, just wanted her to know what actually happened. She thanked me for trusting her. Said she always thought there was more to the story. Said she needed time to process. I told her I was planning to share this with other family members from the Christmas gathering, not to start drama, but because my parents made this public when they burned my stocking in front of 60 people. I was providing context. Over the next week, I reached out to 11 relatives, cousins, aunts, uncles, both sides. Kept it professional. No emotional appeals, just facts. Here's what happened 8 years ago. Here's the evidence. Here's what my parents have done since. Make your own conclusions. Reactions varied. Some didn't respond. A few said they didn't want involvement, but several thanked me for the truth. My cousin Marcus, Uncle Tony's son, actually apologized for clapping at the stocking burning. Said he'd only heard his dad's version and had no idea about the actual evidence. Then family pressure started hitting my parents. Found out through Aunt Christine that Mom was getting calls from siblings asking why she lied about 2016. That Dad was being confronted about whether the affair was really just a misunderstanding. That Uncle Tony, Dad's biggest supporter, was suddenly quiet. Ruby called me furious about 10 days after I started sharing evidence. Said I ruined Mom's relationship with her sisters, that their church group found out and people were talking. That Dad was asked to step down from a volunteer position he'd held for years. I asked if she wanted me to feel bad. She said I should, that I was tearing the family apart for revenge. I told her the family was torn apart 8 years ago when Dad cheated and Mom blamed me for exposing it. I was setting the record straight. She hung up. 4 days later, notice from my lawyer. Parents filed to withdraw the lawsuit. No explanation, no apology. Case dismissed without prejudice, meaning they could technically refile, but my lawyer said that was extremely unlikely given how this played out. Mom texted me the day after withdrawal. Long message. Said I got what I wanted. Said she hoped I was happy watching their reputation crumble. Said she and Dad were devastated by what I'd done and would never understand how they raised such a vindictive person. Said Ruby was the only child they had left and I should consider myself permanently removed from the family. I read it once and didn't respond. Here's the thing. I don't feel triumphant or victorious. I feel tired, relieved, like a weight I carried for 8 years finally got set down. My parents made their choices. Chose to protect an affair over their son. Chose to rewrite history and make me the villain. Chose to publicly humiliate me and legally threaten me instead of acknowledging what happened. Every escalation came from them. I finally responded in kind. Some of you will say I went too far, that I should have walked away instead of burning everything down. Maybe, but I spent 8 years being the bigger person, keeping peace, showing up to holidays where I was treated like an unwanted guest. 8 years being told I was wrong for telling the truth. I'm done being the bigger person, done accepting blame I don't deserve. If sharing documented evidence destroys my parents' reputation, maybe their reputation deserves destruction. Last thing, Aunt Christine invited me to a gathering she's hosting next month. Small thing, her immediate family and a few cousins. Said I was welcome and several relatives wanted to rebuild a relationship with me outside my parents' influence. So, I didn't lose my whole family, just the parts that were poison. They started it on Christmas Eve when they burned my stocking and declared me dead to them. I finished it. Thanks for following along.